Hello everyone. So I'm going to show something here which is based on a book called Rust Web Development with Warp, Tokio and reqwest. If you're familiar with Python, you'll think that's a typo, but in Rust it's reqwest. What we're going to do is just have a look at a small example from this book, which I'm not plugging, I'm not making any money from it, but it's just a book that I found useful, which I can recommend if you are interested in experimenting with APIs and web programming. So this, unlike my previous videos, is actually going to be some kind of coding, live coding, copy and pasting, so bear with me. This is actually going to be an example where we build something. So cargo, new, and we will call it reqw, cd reqw codes. So really what I just want to run through is how to open up the example. Let's make this a bit larger as well. Hopefully that's a nice big font, or it will be when we see some writing. And yeah, use warp filter. So what we're going to be doing is using Linux with Rust, and then we're going to be using some crates. We're going to be using warp and we're going to be using Tokio. So as per this note here, Rust provides the syntax and the type for asynchronous programming, but the runtime and kernel abstractions are implemented outside the core language. So they've done that to kind of future-proof it, so you can add whether you want warp, I think the other one's hyper, and so on. So before we do anything, I'm just going to, because it takes some time, what I'm going to do is add in the package details into my cargo.toml file. So in fact, that's probably okay. Let's just go for the dependencies. So the dependencies will be Tokio version, this says version 1.2, so we'll stick with that. Oh, I didn't copy and paste that very well. And then the other thing I need is warp, and that's version 0.3. So far so good. Rust Analyzer is still loading. So with those two installing, or installed even, we will then look to actually test the example code. So really this is this is day one, chapter one. I just thought it'd be useful just to demonstrate it, and if somebody's watching this who's not seen this type of thing before, it might be useful. So I'm just going to do cargo format on this. The only problem with Rust Analyzer is it does take a while to load sometimes. Not a problem really, normally, unless you're trying to do a live video and you've got viewers who like everything at double quick speed. You've probably switched off already if you want everything to be double quick speed, but there we go. Right, so use warp filter. Tokio main, and then async and await. These are the two key things here, which if you're coming from a JavaScript background, you're probably familiar with, and even with Python, async IO, if you've used that. Typically, the Python example will show you where it makes 3 calls, and in between, it yields back to the first process after sending the second and third requests, so it can carry on and process the first request even while the second and third one's still kind of pending. So, right, we've set up 127.0.0 and port 1337 here. So let hello, we're just creating a variable, equal warp get. You can also change get to post, but I'm not going to do that because that's kind of further on. Then map. This uses things called routes, which you'll be familiar with if you've used Flask or Fast API or anything else like that. So that is chapter 1, and then there's some more theory, and they break it down, and there's some good explanations. So this is actually going to display hello world when we load page the 127.0.1. I'm still waiting for these to finish, so it does take a while with... This is the difference between a interpreted language and a compiled language. You will have to just grin and bear it. But I've read that that is one of the drawbacks with Rust compared to certain other languages, is just the time to compile. The actual the time to run the compiled binary is actually on a par virtually with C, but the active compiling is a little bit slower. But I think that's a small price to pay for having such an extensive support of crates and so on. So Tokio, if you've not come across that, you will pretty soon experience using Tokio if you try to do anything involving the web with Rust. The other day I was looking at Rust BDK, which is a Bitcoin development kit that uses Tokio. Cargo check hyper. So I think I'm going to run this anyway and see what happens. We've got an error, probably because I'm being impatient, and main function is not allowed to be async, aborting due to cargo builds. There we go. We can see it's up to 146 crates. If you're expecting a really fast video with lots of background music, I do apologise. But I will do some more shorter videos, trying to briefly summarise each topic as I learn it and investigate and delve deeper into certain aspects of Rust. But for the time being, I just wanted to show this just to kind of, as much as anything, just to kind of give some inspiration for how with async and await and effectively two lines of code, you can do some cool stuff. And I think it's sometimes good just to start actually doing what I would call real projects. I know it's only a hello world, but it is a fully fledged working web server effectively. I just thought it'd be good to do this because it does expose you to some of the probably things which you might find scary if you're just permanently doing tutorials and beginners tutorials, and then you suddenly thrown in at the deep end with async, await, warp, serve, and some kind of strange new syntax. So the hello there is you pass in hello. So we create hello here, which is basically saying go and get the map NUSA closure there and format hello world. So all of line 6 is then being passed into line 7, and it's being served on this address, which we're almost there, 144 out of 146. It's always the way. I think the last, the last one or two are always the one that take ages. So if you like this channel, just feel free to add any comments, questions, tips, advice, ideas, and there we go, it's ready to run. So we do cargo build one more time, cargo run. And that's running, so what we then need to do is open another terminal window. I'll do those side by side. In fact, let me kill that one. And that one. And what's going on here? Yeah, in fact, I can get rid of that one. That's better. If you're doing, because we've got the server running, I'm just going to open up the second terminal. So all we need to do is test it with curl. And 127, HTTP 127.0.0.1, and then port 1337. And there we go, hello world. So with just those few lines of code, you can actually get your first web server working with Rust.